What's going on, everybody? Welcome here tonight to the Sports Jedi Network. The dust has settled. The Go Home show is in the books. And now it's time to talk about it. Did NXT tonight deliver on its final emotional push before Vengeance Day PLE this Saturday? Did the title defense at least try to tempt you to make you hit? Did the triple threat match get you excited? Did the promos sell you into the PLE? Or did just fill time? Tonight we'll break everything down from results, from matches, from all our thoughts, implication heading into Vengeance Day and Stand and Deliver, because it was just another episode. It was a final narrative checkpoint. Before we get going, we are fueled here tonight by G Fuel Energy. Fuel your grind, power your reaction. Use promo code PGA Chris at checkout for 20% off. That's gfuelenergy.com. PGA Chris for 20% off. And let's go. We also are sponsored by Dude Wipes, because even when wrestling gets messy, stay ready, stay fresh, stay clean. Text ticks in capital letters dudes. Save 20 to 5946 and save 20% off your next order. And of course, our final sponsor, Blackout Coffee. Blackout Coffee for the real ones who stay up breaking down wrestling night in, night out. Go to blackoutcoffee.com/rumble. Put Rumble as your save 20% off, or use my referral code 20 Sports Jedi 20 and save even 20% more. All right, let's get right into it. Let's talk about some NXT. Just finished going off the air from my beautiful city in Orlando, Florida. Vengeance Day will be at Orlando, Florida. Don't know yet if I'm heading there. I put my name in the registry list, waiting for the confirmation from WWE to be able to be on the list so I could go and attend Vengeance Day. Might be there live in person to check it all out this Saturday. But let's talk about all this stuff that started with. And there was something that I want to give NXT some props and a lot of credit was the opener. You know, you had Miles Bourne come out, your newly crowned North American champion. He shows up, he comes out dressed in beautiful street clothes. He had a suit on, opens up a promo, starts talking about his journey, and out comes All Ego Ethan Page. The last thing I expected was seeing Eagle Page come out, and of course security and Robert Stone. A match was actually made at that moment. I thought we were going to have a match for later on in the evening in the telecast, where they go back in the locker room, get into wrestling gear, get everything ready. But no, they did something different that I got to give credit, kudos, and a lot of props to NXT creative for going into a match in street clothes in their suits, back and forth, a hard-hitting match. You know, we seen everything came into play, where pants were being ripped, shoes were being all over the place. Actually, All Legal shoes came into play, where Miles Bourne hits his finisher, and boom, out of the gate, he retains his NXT North American title. They're building a feud here where there's an edgier Miles Bourne. I am liking what I'm seeing from Miles Bourne. You know, seeing his growth from NXT, from Level Up, seeing him not knowing where he fit, if he was going to fit as a tag team, as a singles. You know, something about Miles Bourne, you know, not strong on the microphone due to his disability, but that's nonsense. I think he's hitting everything out of the park for Miles Bourne. Great job on All Legal Page to just help him get to that next level. I'm very invested on where they're going with Miles Bourne as the North American champion here. What's next for All Legal Ethan Page? You see he was disheveled. Later on, there's a promo in the backstage when you see him with Vanity Project and Ricky Saints, who's trying to give him a prep talk. He's just staring into an abyss. Do we see All Legal Ethan Page get called up to the main roster? I don't know if they'll do that right now, especially with Stand and Deliver, where there's going to be a standalone show, different date from WrestleMania weekend. I don't know. Will he have his final match at Stand and Deliver? Possibly. It's a possibility that we might see him do his final match at Stand and Deliver there. What's going on, Aaron? Hope you enjoy your evening. I hope you enjoy the NXT tonight. Aaron loves wrestling, joining us in the chat. Hope you're doing well, my friend. This is your NXT Go Home show here as we're wrapping up before Vengeance Day. We get a milestone interference, get the street fight here. We get Zaria coming into the building after the match. Zaria gets stopped by Maria Schreiber, gets into her face for the interview, where she basically blows her off. But we see Darkstead in the background. Something that bothered me all night, or it kind of bothered me after like the third time we saw it. The constant plunder, the constant referee, security guard, Robert Stone coming out. It feels like NXT is in so much disarray of chaos. I don't know if they're doing that on purpose. So when they bring in a general manager, because remember, Robert Stone is on an interim basis. Maybe that's the theme of the shows here where Robert Stone, we can't give you this job because you can't control this locker room. Everyone comes out. We have to always have high security alert, multiple security guards, so many people coming from all over the place. Maybe we need someone when they bring in a general manager later in the NXT storyline, someone's going to bring in law and order. I don't know. I think that's what they're leaving this here because this is something I see too much. I'm going to look at it. We saw Dark State in the background. Dark State was waiting for Tony D'Angelo outside the most dangerous parking lot in all of professional wrestling, the NXT parking lot, where Robert Stone wants them all to get inside. All the security guys pushing them in. One thing that had a bit of a disconnect was as soon as they go inside, the door closes, Tony D'Angelo pulls up in a muscle car. All right, he's right in front where they all were, picks up a tire rod and went into the building. Great. That's something that's going to set later on when we see Dion Lennox in the ring as he takes out Osiris Griffin in the backstage. Lennox calls him out. He comes out with the tire rod. He never gets over the barricade where the fans are. And then more security guard came out. So you had a tiring rod and there was nothing but conversation. They're going to have a match leading up at Vengeance Day. Fine. I'm wanting to see that because it kind of felt like the winner of this match is going to stand and deliver as a number one contender. They didn't, quote unquote, say that. Dion Lennox fumbled through his promo, called it NXT instead of Dark State. He just did some type of line that he just fumbled where I wanted to see a little more from Dion Lennox in the promo. Maybe he needs more microphone time. For Tony D'Angelo, sink or swim. If he doesn't swim, he's going to sink for Tony D'Angelo. Does he get in the world title picture? Only time will tell. I don't know. Do you guys want to see Tony D'Angelo in the title picture, especially if Joe Henry's a babyface? We know something that I'm going to talk about in a minute that did not resonate was that closing a segment with Joe Henry with Ricky Saints on the mic on the guitar. What possessed Ricky Saints or creative to say, take a guitar, go in the middle of the ring and entertain us? He didn't even know how to play the guitar. I don't know if he meant that as a spoof or as a joke, as a gimmick, but that as a closing segment of the show, I mean, that kind of took the wind out of the sail of the whole show. I thought the show tonight was a really good show, up and down, and we're going to break things. We're starting talking about different things that I enjoyed, but that closing promo, you remember, they say you remember the last thing you see on anything, on a television show, on any wrestling event or any event, and you left that in the palate of professional wrestling fans' mouth was him not playing the guitar well, and it was just cringe. You gave that, they gave it 5 to 6 minutes of Ricky Saints trying to sing, and it got exciting at the end where Joe Henry eventually came in and hit him with the guitar, and we had the Vanity Project come out and Miles Bourne for the save, and you kind of left that alliance with Miles Bourne and Joe Henry babyface on top. But prior to getting to that, it was just something that did not connect with me. Watching it, Ricky Saints, I don't know, he couldn't play the guitar, he couldn't sing, and it just didn't feel natural. You could tell he was outside of his element. Now, of course, in life, you like to be put in situation out of your comfort zone. That's the only way you're going to excel. But when you don't have that talent to sing or play the guitar, it felt like it was a disconnect. It was a little bit of disconnect for Ricky Saints. Do I want to see the match between Ricky Saints and Joe Henry? Absolutely. I definitely want to see that. I definitely want to see what's in store there, what direction if Joe Henry is going to retain his title. What's next, for Ricky Saints? Is he going to get interference from the Vanity Project? We've seen that kind of alliance there. I know that Jackson Drake has a big matchup tomorrow in Sessions 2, Part 2 on Evolve. And I don't know if he, against Cappuccino Jones, does he retain his title? You have to tune in and see that. That's something big and important. I believe that's already pre-recorded. So don't go looking for spoilers. Just go into, if you're an Evolve fan, and of course, if you want to hear all your breakdowns on Evolve, I do recommend you for the podcast of Unappreciative Wrestling Fans, the PUWF with Alex Coquito, and NXT Time with D-Walk and of Joe and all of them. They break down the NXT and evolve as well. So I wanted to give them, my guys, my friends, a quick shout out there. Something that was resonated throughout the night was Blake Monroe and Jada Parker. Jada Parker and Blake Monroe, as I'm reading my notes here, I like the promo which Blake Monroe comes out. She starts talking about how glamour, she's glamorous, and Jada interrupts, where Jada started throwing some real truths towards Blake, her insecurity. Is she really glamorous, or you're hiding behind her insecurity? Where I said this when I was doing the watch along to my chat. I said, look, chat, Blake Monroe needs Jada and Jada needs Blake, because Blake needs to channel in a little bit of her Mariah May, Toni Storm, Hollywood ending street fight. That viciousness, that next level of condescending heelish, it needs to be brought out in NXT in her WWE run. And she has not given us that. They tried it with Jordynne Grace in the steel cage back at Heat Wave. It just didn't resonate, didn't hit. They might have it here with Jada Parker. Jada Parker needs another feud where they're going to do a street fight later on in the night. You see Mariah Ray comes out disheveled, gets on the announce table, says she wants a street fight. And again, more plunder, more interference, more of the referee, security guard trying to break out. They actually get in the ring. They get into physicality the second time around as well, right before the Hank and Tank 6-man tag match, where I need at Vengeance Day, that street match, that street fight between these two ladies, it's got to hit it out of the park. Jada needs to tap in that fight that she had at the ECW arena with Lola Vice. They need that kind. She needs that same kind of energy, that same kind of ooh and ah factor this Saturday against Mariah May, aka Blake Monroe. Mariah May needs to be channeled a little bit by Blake Monroe on Saturday. If this doesn't happen, I don't know where Jada Parker goes, and I don't care who wins and lost. I just need them to be the match of the night. If the ladies could steal the match of the night, although there's going to be a lot of candidate for the match of the night at Vengeance Day, they have a chance to steal match of the night here, where their street fight is going to be very talked about. If they can have that where it's talked about, they're going to hit it out of the park. And maybe there's something creative for Jada to take that next step, either in the title world picture. I think personally, I'm going to be totally dead honest with you. Whoever outshines, and not by wins and losses, I'm talking about goes over in the eyes of the producers and coaches, is going to get that next push in the women's NXT division. Plain and simple. If it's Blake Monroe, she's going to get that push. If it's Jada, she's going to get. I think it doesn't mean who's going to win and lose, who's going over. Who's going to go in the eyes of the coaches, whether it's in a loss, in her registering, her selling, and storytelling, is going to get that push, if it makes sense. Because this is something that Vengeance Day, and something that's been bugging me and it's been on my mind when it comes to NXT, the redundance. There's a lot of copy and pasting. Like tonight, I was telling you, it felt, in weeks now with NXT, it's like we're seeing the same thing. Last week we had 4 title matches, all had interference in it, where 3 of the 4 were resulted in title changes. Tonight we have a lot of security guard interference, a lot of security guard coming out, Robert Stone coming out, too many, chaos. And sometimes chaos is a good thing, especially if you're building something, but sometimes it tends to be copy and paste, where I need something just a little different. I got to give them credit. Like I said, the opening contest was a different of a opening show when we see 2 guys in a street fight having a match for a title matchup. I got to give them a lot of credit, and I got to also hammer them when I see a lot of redundance. I've seen that a lot with the redundant part with the referees, the security guards, and so forth. One thing that I also feel that's a little redundant, we're having a street fight, but now we're having a underground match between Kelani Jordan and Lola Vice. We saw Lola Vice has a kind of a fracture on her hand. According to the doctors, she's going to take it on her precaution because she needs to fight. She doesn't want to get shelved for 6 months. WWE needs her. She thinks she's in a big opportunity in her career that she cannot be sidelined. While we see Kelani Jordan getting trained in the mixed martial arts, by one of the best in Shayna Baszler at the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu gym here in somewhere in Orlando, Florida. I don't want to give the directions where exactly where it is, but I know where it is. And you see them training with Shayna Baszler, where she wants to incorporate her gymnastics, and Shayna is telling his gymnastic is not going to help you in the octagon or in the underground set stage of NXT, where we have a street fight and we having a underground match. It's kind of almost like the same rules. There are no rules. Only difference is it's just this is a fight until someone gets knocked out. Where in a street fight you could get a pin submission and you could use all other weapons and plunder. Where it's kind of you kind of have a little bit of redundancy in this match. What do I expect on that match for Vengeance Day? It's going to be a good match. I one thing I got to give credit to the ladies of NXT, no matter what. And tonight, this is one of the reasons why I was very excited to see this card, was all these different segments with the ladies, because they keep bringing it. I want to see what's next for Kalani Jordan. I think Kalani Jordan, after winning that TNA Knockouts title, you saw her. She's ready to be a face of the company. Does she become your NXT Women's Champion, or does she get the jump to the main roster? Only WWE Creative knows. Personally, I would love her to have a run as NXT champion, to see her either babyface or heel. I don't care, as NXT's champion after Zaria. It's just, there is so much meat on the bone with Zaria, especially that match tonight. And that's why I'm jumping into the Zaria matchup with Jacy Jayne, where I said to myself, they just changed the Intercontinental title on Raw. Dominic lost to Penta. Do they dare to change the NXT Women's Champion on a Tuesday night like they did back in June, where we didn't expect Stephanie Vaquer to drop it to Jacy Jayne? Does Jacy Jayne do the job here to Zaria, where Zaria could be getting momentum after turning on Soruka? And I think the match for Stand and Deliver would have been more appealing or more exciting to see Zaria versus Soruka, where it could have been Soruka's final goodbye, quote unquote, before she goes shows up after WrestleMania to the main roster. You could have had that as a blow-off match, but no, they have match. The ladies work fine. I still feel they needed more chemistry. There was a few spots there in the match between Zaria and Jacy Jayne that was a little bit off, just by hair, but I thought the physicality, the knee lift, there was a knee that Zaria took from Jacy Jayne was brutal. The same vice versa. I thought some of the German suplex that Zaria gave on Jacy Jayne was a little bit, it was a little dangerous, but Jacy tucked her neck in just right where her neck was safe. But if she didn't, it could have went terrible. Those little inklings there, but it was all in all good physical match. The interference of Soruka, where you had two Fatal Influence members on the outside, she still eluded them, came in and double soul snatcher, disqualification. I guess that was a way of protecting Jacy Jayne from keeping her title and not pinning Soruka. My chat on my watch along wanted to see a definitive winner, regardless if it was Zaria or Jacy getting a definitive win. It kind of left the flux of the women's division or the women's world title up in the air, which Robert Stone later on in the vignette said he's going to address it at Vengeance Day. He's going to find out what the stipulation is. It's going to be for Stand and Deliver for the women's title. What he has in mind. Is it going to be a ladder match? Or, they like to go to the ladder matches. That's a Shawn Michaels type of thing. He enjoys that. Remember, he is him and Razor Ramon, two of the best intercontinental titles on the ladder match. Do they go that route? The inaugural Women's North American title was brought out on a ladder match. So don't be surprised if that's one of the matches or one of the stipulations that we're going to see between Soruka, Zaria, and maybe Jacy Jayne in a triple threat with a ladder match. I don't know. To be determined. I'm just me going on a limb as a guess. It looks like it's going to be a triple threat. It kind of feels it. Remember, they also have Madison Square Garden show, the theater of Madison Square Garden at the 31st of March. That's something that they probably going to make a nice super show, a nice, similar to what they did last year. They had the Hardys versus Axiom. They had Obafemi versus Moose. They did show us a nice showcase back then. Don't know if they'll do it this year at the Theater of Madison Square Garden. No TNA implication tonight on NXT. It's been a while. We haven't seen any of the crossovers of the TNA wrestlers at this year much, other than Adriana Grace here and there. Not the Elegance brand. That's it. When we had the Elegance brand wrestle and defended their Knockouts title was the last time we had TNA implication on NXT. Kind of miss it a little bit, but it is what it is. But speaking of something that wasn't missed, was the women's speed tournament. We saw Wren Sinclair taking on Nikkita Lyons. Well, Nikkita Lyons, we haven't seen her much. Last time we saw her, she did have a pretty impressive match in defeat. And tonight against Wren Sinclair was a good match for another good showing, despite it was 3 minutes for Nikkita Lyons. You know, all I hear on rhetoric from the internet fans and from my guys on, again, check out the PUWF, the podcast of unappreciated wrestling fans. They have their channel on YouTube. He breaks down Alex and D-Walk. They break down Evolve, and they keep an eye on them. Been collaborating, and they've been telling me Nikkita has improved, and you have to see her matches. Got to see her against Wren Sinclair. I thought both one of her good matches here. It looks like Nikkita's finally healthy. She's been hit with some knee issues, double knee issues, you know, something that the talent, the fanfare was always there with Nikkita. It just was staying healthy. Had a good match with Wren Sinclair. Wren Sinclair, double arm kind of submission there. Was a little bit off. It wasn't executed properly, but it was the right decision of her getting the victory on Nikkita Lyons to advance in this tournament. It just didn't, at that moment when she applied it, it didn't feel natural for the victory. But I understand that she needed to go over and the match was going to end. All in all, for Wren, we know that she's taking on Fallon Henley. The story is Fallon Henley, Wren Sinclair, Kendall Gray, Jacy Jayne. Maybe Kendall Gray gets added in a ladder fatal 4-way with the women's world title. We'll see where Robert Stone has it in his mind. He's going to do some qualifiers and the finals will be at Madison Square Garden to take on the winner at Stand and Deliver. I don't know. I don't know what Robert Stone wants to do, where he's going to go, storyline wise, or Sean. For it, me personally, I would like to see the ladder match between all four ladies, and for the WWE for NXT Women's World Champion. We'll see where they go with that. I still say that match for Nikkita Lyons. Good job there in speed. Now I need to see her, if they're going to keep her in the main roster, not in Evolve, see her in a kind of another small feud to see another longer match, not just a 3-minute match in Nikkita Lyons. Give me something else, because let's face it, Nikkita Lyons has been around for 3-4 years with WWE, with the WWE NXT system. I don't know when there's a contract renewal with injury time, whatever the case is. They're gonna have to make a decision with her. Do they resign her or do they part ways? Let's face it, she cannot stay on Evolve too long. And she has to either sink or swim on the NXT level to get ready for the main roster. I don't think she's main roster ready, guys. With Nikkita, still we got to know how she could cut promos or not, or more or tell different stories. We've seen, she's evolving in different characters, a heel, babyface. We need to see more on Tuesday nights for the world to see for Nikkita Lyons. And also when they travel outside of the Performance Center, we have to listen to with the crowd around, just outside of the Performance Center around outside of Orlando, if she's resonating and connecting with the crowd, with like the way we saw with, I always go back to a barometer for Bakersfield when WWE went for No Mercy, Trick Williams. We knew that he was a megastar, but when they hear that reception outside and all the way in California, you knew that people are resonating, talents are resonating, and people are watching. We need to hear that from Nikkita Lyons outside, and I would like them to give her a small opportunity on NXT Tuesday nights for her to see more. I was impressed what I saw. This is the second match that we saw her sporadically, and she's done it very well. There is a marketability for her, and I hope they get it, because sink or swim for Nikkita Lyons, in my opinion, going forward. We'll talk about the 6-man Shiloh Hill, Tank and Tank taking on the Vanity Project. There's something about, I'm going to be totally transparent and honest, there's something about the Vanity Project that doesn't grasp me. I don't know what it is. I'm trying to give them the opportunity. They could wrestle. They're working sequence. They do work well in sequence. Ricky Smokes, Baylor, Justin Drake. They got to just grow on me. just feel like they look so young. And I don't know if I'm trying to stereotype them looking too young to take on veterans like Hank and Tank. Shiloh Hill didn't do much wrestling for the first part, waiting for that hot tag. He got in, he gets the pin. He gets the pin on Jackson Drake, out of all people, who has a big match against Cappuccino Jones tomorrow on Sessions. I love the fact that Hank and Tank did that double suicide on the outside where it left the finisher for Shiloh in the middle of the ring to get that kind of modified suplex or finisher on Jackson Drake. Good job there. One thing that I noticed was Keanu Carver comes out and tells Booker T to tell his boy to keep his name out of his mouth. In reference to earlier in the show, there was a backstage. You had Eli Drake, you had Sean Legacy, and Jasper Troy. They were talking about the speed and Ian LaFleur. They were talking about the speed tournament last week, how Ian LaFleur won, how that's feels like it's a title for high flyers, quick action, quick pace wrestlers, not like Jasper Troy, who's a monster who out there and he should be working a different style. And then he mentioned about Keanu Carver, where John Legacy had a match and that name came out of his mouth. That's where Booker T gets that insult from Keanu Carver. I don't know what Keanu Carver, that should be a match that should be interesting. Jasper Troy, Keanu Carver, but Jasper Troy challenges all of those three members in a triple threat next week. Eli and Sean Legacy in a triple threat. I don't know where that's going to lead. I want to see Keanu Carver versus Jasper Troy. That's the matchup that needs to happen for Stand and Deliver. Those two big men, those two monsters. Wonder if they build it. If they build it correctly, I think everyone in the NXT universe will be excited to see those two men go at it and really get that what they call it, the two Haas match. So we'll see where that goes going there. Again, with Tony D'Angelo, I don't know what's his end game. I don't know where he's going. Where is he going with Dark State? He's going to take him one-on-one. Does he need a family? Does he need help? But then you're getting back to the Tony D'Angelo with the family and the mobsters things where I don't think he wants to do that gimmick anymore. So I don't know if he's going to take one-on-one at a time, but you took out Osiris Griffin. Now you're taking on Dion Lennox. You still got the other two, Cutler James, which you already beat, but then you have Shaquan Sugars. I don't know where that goes for Tony D'Angelo in this feud and the world title picture. One thing I do like what NXT has done with the women, we're getting interest when we had Izzi Dame sit down with Tatum Paxley in the Dollhouse promo. Interesting that they did that by themselves, but of course they felt like a safe space in the Dollhouse. Have that conversation where Tatum Paxley is going to take that title away from her. Izzi Dame ends up getting upset and breaking down the Dollhouse. I like that Tatum Paxley was calm, cool, and collective. Her next level of growth or as a character development is being shown on display for Tatum Paxley. Her brief title run might have given her that confidence that she needs for us to see her entertain us on the Tuesday nights. For Tatum, you always felt her that shy, intimidated, or good hand in Tatum until she won that NXT Women's title. Now, does she win that North American title? I give it a 50% chance. You could never tell with Shawn Michaels booking when a title is going to change, especially in a female like a Tatum Paxley. Watching him throughout the years from 2.0 and the different title changes, that it could come at any time. This is what I like about Shawn. He keeps you guessing and keeps you on your toes. He's not really formulaic when the title changes happen, although sometimes you could feel it when there might be a title change. But what I like about him, when they do come, they do truly surprise you. So this Saturday, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Tatum Paxley become your Women's North American champion, especially the way the crowd in NXT seem to gravitate to her. They really love Tatum time in NXT. To see her with that North American champion, and then 2 championships in you could say a calendar year, because it was during the November. But it's not. It still hasn't been a full calendar year for Tatum. Will be a big achievement for Tatum Paxley if she does win that title. She could have a short title run. Vengeance Day, people don't want to see that, but maybe you could back and forth set up a nice series between Tatum Paxley and Izzi Dame for that Women's North American title. Make it a rivalry. That's what makes rivalry in wrestling special. When they have the best of one another. We'll see how that goes there. All in all, tonight I wanted to speak about this NXT show tonight. very good show. I'll give this a very good show, a B plus. If you want to do in the letter grade, a number grade, a nice 7.5 to 8. The Ricky Saint stuff was not my favorite at the end with the guitar and in the concert and the constant interference of all the different referees and security guard. It was copy and paste. If we had it maybe 2 out of all the 5-6 times we would have made difference. But all in all, it was a very entertaining 2 hours of NXT. NXT lately wasn't been hitting on all cylinders, especially with Trick Williams, Obafemi, Javon going up to the main roster. These other talents have stepped up. They still have a lot of meat on the bone when it comes to with the female, with the women. There is still a lot of entertaining. Jacy Jayne doing her best work in her career as an NXT Women's Champion. Losing Jordan Grace hurts. Losing some of the talents that they have. But boy, you could feel that Jacy Jayne's days at NXT are coming to an end. And Fallon Henley feels like they're going to get that eventual call up. You could see Jacy Jayne on a Friday night SmackDown along with Fallon Henley. Especially after watching the encouragement that we saw on Elimination Chamber from Kiana James and seeing Tiffany Stratton, they were all part of that. They all were part of that NXT 2.0. Jacy Jayne, Kiana James, Tiffany Stratton, Fallon Henley. There's chemistry. But here's the thing. If you bring them up to SmackDown, is there enough confidence in the creative team to give these ladies a lot of great storytelling and television time? That's my only fear if they bring Jacy Jayne and a Fallon Henley up to SmackDown. Is there enough time? Or it's 3 hours. I mean, they should have time. But do you trust the creative process to give them the right time and right stories for a Fallon and Jacy Jayne to be telling on SmackDown, along with the other ladies that I mentioned? You've got Julia. You've got a lot of good ladies if you bring them up and boost. Last Legend and Fallon Henley has a lot of history, with NXT. And they're not afraid of talking about those histories from the past on the main roster. But again, it's up to creative. What happens here for NXT, they have a lot of women to come up and get ready the next push. That's why it's like I want to see a little more of Nikkita Lyons. You have Kaylee Armstrong. You have Kaylee Armstrong still in Evolve that could be put up to the main roster or NXT main roster, what I mean. Jada Parker, Mariah May, they're next. There's a lot of talent when it comes to the ladies in NXT and won't hurt if they do pull certain ladies here and there. But again, all in all, good show tonight. I'm excited to see what happens for Vengeance Day. Get to see a PLE tonight for NXT in the Performance Center. It's been a while. It has been since NXT Deadline that they haven't had a PLE at the Performance Center. I was at that one. Interesting to see because I'm pretty sure they could not find a venue. I puzzled. I said this on my watch along. Why did they not go back? They didn't go to Atlanta and gone where NXT TNA is going to be this Thursday night in Atlanta. They're going to be there this Thursday night and Friday night in Atlanta, Georgia. They could have done the PLE on Saturday, that same venue that TNA is utilizing, and rented it. And they could have probably had 1 or 2 TNA matches collaborate there. Thursday Night Impact leading into the PLE Vengeance in Atlanta. But hey, that's more power for the people here in Orlando from us that go to the Performance Center who have a PLE there. So with that said, I want to thank everyone for tonight. Appreciate everyone. Just wanted to give a little bit of a recap of NXT. NXT was a strong show here. Excited for the build for Vengeance Day and into Roadblock, into Stand and Deliver. So the road to Stand and Deliver is kicked off here and done a good job here. They have some things that they clean up, but no wrestling show is perfect. Don't forget, tomorrow night, PGA Chris will be live for the instant reaction for NXT Dynamite. Check it out. He will be there. This will be going on our audio platform as well as Wrestle Soup and those. Salute. Thank you so much to Jeff Liftman and all the folks there at Wrestle Soup. Appreciate you guys. Don't forget, check out our friends, of course. Hello Media, Samuel Lyons, the TCP podcast. Aaron Loves Wrestling. Appreciate there. Marie Shadows, of course, appreciate you so much there at the Square Circle podcast as well. To PUWF, Alex Coquito, NXT Time with D-Walk, and all the friends that help us collaborate and keep growing as a wrestling community. Appreciate you guys so much, man. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday night. And, man, we'll see you next time here on the Sports Jedi Network, man. Appreciate that. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share. May the sports be with you.
This is Sports Jedi Network, the fan-powered, creator-driven home for wrestling, combat sports, and major New York sports talk. Hosted by BX Sports Jedi Kevin, your rapid-fire, high-energy commentator, alongside a crew of passionate young men and ladies bringing the heat every single show. We cover it all: watch-alongs, live reactions, recaps, interviews, and debates from WWE, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, AEW, Dynamite, TNA, Thursday Night Impact Zone and specials, UFC Time with Austin, plus full coverage of New York sports talk. And yes, we tap into the galaxies of Star Wars plus the worlds of Marvel and DC. Breaking news, rumors, fantasy booking, hot take debates, plus major collaborations with PGH Chris TV Production, Wrestling Soup and Friendos, Garden of Thought, PUWF Podcast, Hello Media of the Samuel Lyon TCP Podcast Group. We're fast-paced, we're interactive, we're built for live chat energy and real fan community. Our mission? Real-time reactions, honest takes, humor, interviews, and energy every single show. This isn't just coverage, this is community, this is combat, this is culture. That's Sports Jedi Network. May the sports be with you.